partnership, a national partnership. And we have been working intentionally across the nation to bring Alzheimer's education and awareness into the community. And so I kind of lead that partnership on the Western region side, and we've done some work already here at Parks Chapel AME Church, but I was really excited when we were asked to come and be part of this situation, because I think it's really important for us to hear from us and know that Alzheimer's disease and other dementias we may be diagnosed and living with do not define us. So I'm really excited because I know Dr. Habersham, Reverend Habersham, very well, and I've heard her speak, and she's so passionate and she's so vulnerable in the conversation that I know it will resonate with everyone here. Next slide. So I'm just going to do a quick presentation on some level set about Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, and frontotemporal dementia, because I believe anytime you have an audience, you need to share this information out and not just make assumptions that people know. And then, as you know, we also will have some resources available for you as well. So these are a few of the things that we're going to be touching on. Next slide. And at the end, we're also going to have a short Q&A as well. We do plan to come back, as Pastor said, and we'll have regular sessions. So we'll do a session on understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, the 10 warning signs. We can do something about dementia conversations, how to talk to your loved one about going to the doctor or taking away those car keys. So again, this will just be a brief overview, but no, this is a continuing partnership. We're not just in and out. We will be here consistently, and how the pastor and the WMS wants us to work, that's how we will move. Next slide. So who are we? The Alzheimer's Association. We are a national organization. We really focus on research. We're the global leader in research, but we work globally, nationally, and locally. We have about 70 chapters. I serve the California Southland chapter, and I cover all of those counties. So I'm really, really busy in the DEI space, but I don't do it alone. I have a wonderful team that works with me. The reason why I share is that we have so many chapters because sometimes you have a family member or a loved one that lives somewhere else that is living with this disease, or maybe a caregiver. So just know that with our 800 number, you can reach out and let them know where your loved one is, or where you'd like some resources sent, or share it with your family member, and they can call in and get resources in their community as well. Next slide. So what is our mission? Our mission is to lead the way to end Alzheimer's disease and all other dementias by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximum quality resources and support. And I really lean into the part about the early detection and risk reduction, because often when we're talking, especially in the Black and brown community, we don't talk about risk reduction. We talk about the chronic illnesses that we're faced with, and we victimize the victims, saying, you know, y'all have a lot of high blood pressure and diabetes, and let's give you a pill and let's do some treatments. But really, we really don't have conversations on how we can minimize our risk for these diseases and work in ways to empower communities. And also talk about early diagnoses. So I really like to lean in that way. And then quality care and support is always important. And so we make sure that we do bring quality services and resources to the community. And after the session with Reverend Dr. Habersham, we will show some resources on the screen, and you'll also be able to go downstairs and get some resources as well. Next screen. So our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementias, and that's impossible unless we include everyone in the conversation. Everyone has awareness, everyone has access, everyone has support, everyone's part of clinical trials. So this is why we do what we do. This is why I'm so passionate about bringing this information into our community, because the world includes all of us. Next slide. So here are our facts and figures, and you probably hear about this all the time, that there is just such a prevalence of Alzheimer's disease across our nation. So if you look at these numbers, it says 7 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease, and this number is probably going to double by the year 2050. Now, this does not include people that are living with vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and other dementias. And so that's really important to realize that there are other dementias, and that's not included in this number. The other thing I want you to notice on the slide is how much this is costing us as a country to care for folks living with these diseases. Because someone who has diabetes or another disease, they may not remember to take their medications, right, if they have Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. So their hospitalization stays, their frequency of going in and out of care increases because they're not being diagnosed and they're not getting enough resources in order to care for themselves in the early stages, but then to have quality caregiving resources in those late stages. Next slide. And these are our California facts. And you can see in Los Angeles County alone, we have over 190,000 folks living with or diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Now, I know these numbers are higher because these are people that have been diagnosed. And we know that a lot of times we don't get diagnosed. We don't go to the doctor. We don't even talk about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. A lot of us still live under the philosophy that as we age, we get confused, we lose some of our memory, and we think it's a normal part of the aging process. So when we say 193,000 folks in our county, we know that number is low. And the other thing to point out here is 22% of all California caregivers are caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So by the raise of hand, who here has been a caregiver for any type of reason or is currently a caregiver? Have you cared for someone with an illness? Okay? So this means that not only are you caring for someone with an illness in these numbers, but the person may also have dementia. So maybe they're frail and elderly, immobile, but they also have dementia. Maybe they have a cancer diagnosis, but they also have dementia. Now, the previous slide and this slide are statistical data. And it kind of bothers me to share stats because I feel like as Black Americans, we're always talking about our data, always talking about stats. But I use this to empower you. We have elected officials, city council folks, people that we elect, we put in these places and spaces. These numbers are your empowerment to ask, 193 folks are living in my county with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Where are the resources? Where's the fiscal support? All these caregivers, 25% of our population are caregivers for people living with Alzheimer's disease. Why don't we have caregiver funding? Why don't we have more resources in our community? And why don't we have things in our community to lower our risk so these numbers will change? So when you get data, it's important to look at it, but I want us to use it to empower us. When we walk into rooms, you have this armed with you, and you can go into a city council meeting and say, hey, yo, let's talk about this. What are your views on dementia risk reduction? Next slide. And I'd like to share the impact of this disease because when you look at the impact of Alzheimer's on caregivers, do you know if you are caring for your loved one at home, you're a caregiver? So a lot of times, as my partner, Dr. Gaines, will always say, we don't think we're caregivers. We're wives, we're husbands, we're granddaughters, we're sons. We're just taking care of our family member. But you're a caregiver. You're an unpaid caregiver. And so these are what these numbers reflect. Over 11 million Americans provided unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias, which equates to about $347 billion. That's all the work we are doing. And we're not being paid for it, but we should have resources available, right? We should have funding available so that when we have to leave work to care for our loved one and leave the pension on the table, the health benefits on the table, we have to have a reverse mortgage. How are we getting supported for the services that we're providing? Because we want to provide them. There's a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of joy in caring for our loved ones. But again, these numbers are to empower us. The other thing is to realize that caring for someone living with Alzheimer's disease takes a physical, emotional, social, but a financial toll on the family. And we don't talk about that. And so that's why we want early diagnoses to happen in our communities. Because Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, there's no cure. So eventually the person is going to need total care. And how many people have seen the prices of a board and care or a residential care facility, right? Okay, it's not 99 cents. And so when we know this early, we can plan early. Because sometimes we'll leave from work and we didn't plan to have to leave work, but who's going to care for my grandmother, right? And then when I leave work, it's not time for me to retire, so what does that look like? And then if I have a plan for someone to take care of me, if something happens to me and I'm taking care of my grandmother. So these are all the things we need to talk about, but we can't talk about them if we don't know our loved one has the disease into the moderate or the last stages, and now we're scrambling in the fire. So that's why early detection and diagnosis is important. It's not to scare you. It's not to say, I don't want to know. But if you do have one of these dementias without a cure, you and your family need to plan this journey together. So you can have a dignified dementia journey and make sure that you transition in this process the way that looks best for you, physically and fiscally. Next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about dementia. How many people think dementia and Alzheimer's disease are the same thing? I used to. Even as a nurse, I used to. I've been a nurse for a long time, but I used to think they got dementia meant they had Alzheimer's disease. But we know now dementia is the umbrella term. And it just means the person's having memory issues, functioning issues, behavioral issues, but it doesn't mean they have Alzheimer's disease. And so often as a nurse, I would see dementia in someone's chart, and I'd be like, okay, what type of dementia? Oh, I don't know. I just know my mom has dementia. You need to go back. You need to get a diagnosis. Too many times in the charts of people who look like us, there's no diagnosis. So you don't know what you're dealing with. And when you hear Reverend Habersham's story, you understand why it's so important to have a diagnosis. So again, dementia is the umbrella, and there are several different types of dementia and several different types of diseases that can cause dementia. So let's look at different types of, let's look at the brain. So when we look at the brain is a really tiny part of our body, right? You'll see on the next slide, I think it weighs, next slide. You'll see that it is about 2% of our body weight, but it controls everything that we do. And often we don't think about our brain, right? We think about our waistline, we think about all other things, but we're not thinking about our brain. But your brain controls what you think, what you remember, but also all your actions. If you want to walk, your brain is telling you to put the foot in front of the other. If you want to swallow, your brain is telling you to swallow. But it tells you to blink your eyes. It also tells you you're hungry. It also tells you you're thirsty. Your brain controls everything. Next slide. And so for the brain to work effectively, it needs 20 to 25% of the blood that pumps from your heart. So even though it's a small little organ, every time it goes lub-dub, 25% of that blood goes to your brain. 75% of it goes to the rest of your body. So it needs really good nutrient oxygenated blood in order to function well. So when you're eating the fried foods and the salty foods and the sugary foods and the medication and the alcohol and all the other things that you put in your body that may not be good for you, remember they're going to your brain. But when you're eating the healthy foods and drinking the water and exercising, getting that cardiovascular flow, that's also going to your brain. Next slide. So what happens with Alzheimer's disease is the disease of the brain. It's not a mental health disorder. And what happens then is your brain has all these neurons and they're talking to each other. Hey, Tia, move your leg, move your head, breathe. But with Alzheimer's disease, your brain begins to be infected or has these plaques and tangles in the brain from these toxic proteins called amyloid and tau. I won't get into that, but just know that this amyloid and tau is building on the brain, and it's starting to block the signals. So your actions, your behaviors, your functions are becoming impaired. So your brain wants to tell you to move your left leg, but the signal doesn't get there. Your brain wants to tell you to remember something, but the part of the brain that gets the signal to remember, it doesn't get there. And so eventually over time, more of the plaques are building up in between these signaling in our brain cells, and we start losing more and more function. Now, we don't know why the memory, the short-term memory, is the first to go. It's based on how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain. And so this is why someone can remember something from a long time ago, right? But they can't remember what you told them today, and it's really hard to think why mom can't remember that. I told her she has a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and I've told her 3 times, and when you get there, she's forgotten. But she can tell you about her prom or her favorite song from the 1960s, and you're like, what's going on? But that's because how Alzheimer's affects the brain. And so eventually it begins to affect all of the brain, and those brain cells begin to die, and the brain begins to shrink from all of the inflammation. And so you can see that brain on the side that has advanced Alzheimer's disease. It's much smaller than the healthy brain. And so I want you to remember that when you're dealing with your loved one with Alzheimer's disease. It's like an unhealthy heart, an unhealthy lungs. It's an unhealthy brain. And so we have to remember the loved one cannot behave the same if their brain is shrinking and the brain cells are dying. Just like if you had unhealthy lungs, you don't breathe the same. If you had an unhealthy heart, you probably can't exercise and do other cardiovascular exercises the same. So think of it that way. Have patience and compassion because their brain cells definitely are dying and they're definitely unable to do some of the things that they used to do before. Next slide. So vascular dementia is a different type of dementia. What we're seeing, especially in the Black community, is when they are looking at the brain, we're not seeing amyloid and tau on the brains of Black people as much as we are of white people. And so we don't know if maybe amyloid and tau is causing the same effects on us. But the reason we don't know that is because a lot of Black folks aren't in clinical trials and clinical studies. So most of what we know about Alzheimer's disease is not from our brains, right? So we do know that vascular dementia is a form of dementia that affects our brain based on our impaired cardiovascular status. And basically all that means is your blood flow. So if you have diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, a stroke, that means you have impaired blood flow throughout your body. And we know when a diabetic has bad blood flow, what? They lose a toe, they lose an ankle, they lose the bottom part of their leg. But that same impaired blood flow is happening in your brain. But you don't think about that. And it could be happening for 8 to 20 years before we start seeing some impairment. But the good thing about vascular dementia is it's related to cardiovascular issues. So if you manage your high blood pressure, your diabetes, your diet and nutrition, some lifestyle functions, you can minimize and lower your risk for vascular dementia. And we have proven that you can you can improve your cognitive impairment. So that's a good thing to know. So knowing what type of dementia you have is important because you need to know what types of things to do. Next slide. Now, Reverend Habersham is going to be talking about frontotemporal dementia, and it's a little different. So this is a picture of the brain, and frontotemporal dementia affects the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain. So again, these are the parts of the brain that it affects and the functions of the brain that it affects. You can see on this slide. Function, behavior, behavior regulation, language, memory, and emotional processing. Next slide. And so it just shows you the difference between Alzheimer's disease and frontotemporal dementia. Can you see the differences where it's lit up on the brain? So that's going to show you how the person is going to behave. And so we can't just assume someone has Alzheimer's disease because it can be a different type of dementia. And on that slide, it just shows you the differences. The thing that really stands out for me always is that frontotemporal dementia usually has an earlier onset between ages of 40 to 65. So when people say, oh, you probably can't get Alzheimer's early, you can. There's early onset Alzheimer's disease. But frontotemporal dementia starts earlier. So therefore, going to the doctor, getting a diagnosis, and figuring out what's going on with someone where they're having some cognitive or memory issues is extremely important. So there are some modifiable and non-modifiable factors related to having any disease, right? And so non-modifiable means things you can't change. So non-modifiable factors related to Alzheimer's disease and dementias are age, genetics, gender, race, and I always put social determinants of health because that's related to your environment. And not all the time you can change your environment. You might not be able to change how much you make at work, so socioeconomic factors, so they're not always modifiable. But we know with age, after the age of 65, every 5 years your risk for developing this disease increases. We know that for gender, more women have Alzheimer's disease than men, and one is because we live a little longer, but also we have higher rates of high blood pressure, trauma, stress, and things that are continuously causing inflammation in our brain. And again, I wish I could go a little deeper into that, but we could do that in another conversation, but those are some of the reasons. And then race, unfortunately, because of access and quality access to quality care and getting a diagnosis and things that are happening in our community, African Americans have a higher rate of Alzheimer's disease. We're 2 times likely to develop this disease than our white counterparts. And so you can't change your race, right? And so also with your gender and race, if we know that women have a higher propensity, next slide. And we know that African Americans have a higher propensity, Black women are in the higher risk percentage for developing this disease. Next slide. And so here are some modifiable risk factors, and I just highlighted the ones that stand out, the things that we can address immediately. Your high blood pressure, diabetes, managing those 2 chronic illnesses can help lower your risk for this disease. Every time your blood pressure spikes or your diabetes spikes, you are causing increased inflammation in your body and in your brain. So I bet if your doctor spoke to you that way and let you know that high blood pressure and diabetes was directly correlated to your dementia risk, you may address it a little differently, but those are the conversations they're not having with us. So that's why we come out here and have them with you, because we want you to be empowered. We want you to know is physical activity, is eating well, but it's also things that you have to do, some behavioral changes that we have to do, and some things that are happening. Why do we have a higher risk for having high blood pressure? Why do we have a higher risk for stroke? Why do we have a higher risk for depression? Why do we have a higher risk for diabetes? So these are things we need to look at. And those are just some numbers, and the next slide, please. And what I put at the bottom is that 40% of women report insomnia or sleeping difficulties. And sleep is a big risk for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. I think the numbers are, if we can improve our sleep to 6 to 8 hours of healthy sleep, then we can lower our dementia risk by about 30% or more. 30%. So we're talking about we can't sleep, and we're like, girl, it's no big deal, you know, it's okay. But if somebody tells you, you know, you need to figure out why you're not sleeping so you can lower your dementia risk, you're going to try to figure it out. And if that means getting therapy, right? If that means going to different physicians, if you have sleep apnea. But these are things that we can do. We want to get help from our doctor, but a lot of times there are things we're going to have to change, behaviors we're going to have to address, or questions we're going to have to ask our physicians so that we can have that support in making that change. Next slide. And so we talked a little bit about those populations at higher risk. Next slide. So here are some positive things you can do, and downstairs we have a handout called 10 Healthy Habits for Your Brain. And so I want everyone to make sure they get the 10 Healthy Habits handout. These are not just things we made out. There are evidence-based information about things you can do starting today, and just pick one. I don't want you to be like, I'm gonna control my blood pressure, I'm gonna protect my head, I'm gonna sleep better, I'm gonna be smoke-free. Pick one, then pick two, and support each other. That's why we have each other, and hold each other accountable. Right? Girl, let's work on our dementia risk along with our waistline, right? Let's add that to the conversation because it's important to have a healthy brain and a healthy heart. Next slide. And then I want to just point out our pointer study. The results just came out. And this is bringing proof to what I just talked to you about. So for the last, I want to say 2 years, it could be 4 years. It was a 2-year clinical trial. We took 2,000 plus older adults. We made sure that 30% came from diverse communities, and they didn't have dementia, but they had a high risk. So maybe someone like me, African-American woman, I'm high risk, but I don't have dementia. And what they did is they put them down 2 tracks. So they both had behavioral modifications of lifestyle, meaning they changed the way they exercised, they changed the way they ate, and they changed the way they engaged, all healthy ways. But one group of people was monitored, meaning I made your meals, I made sure you exercised, I controlled your engagement. The other group of people over here, let's say these folks over here, we told you what to do, and you did it, but you know, y'all slacked a little bit because y'all was doing it on your own, right? But what they saw in this 2-year study was just with these things that you see on the screen, you don't see that the doctor was here anywhere, they were able to significantly improve their overall brain cognition by about 2 years. I don't know about you, but I can use 2 more years of improved cognition. And the people who had this structured, they had a better result than the people who didn't have structured, but both of them showed improved cognition. So this is just putting into life the things we've been talking about. Walking, engaging, coming out to events, having social engagement in our community. You know someone that can't get out, pick them up, bring them out, do things with them. Make sure you're getting out. Make sure you're modifying the things that you eat. You guys know how to eat healthy. We do. At this point in life, we know. That's why I don't talk about it that much, because I know we know. It's about doing it. And then about lifestyle changes, you know that walking helps you. You know that exercising helps you. And even if it's gardening or dancing, it's something where you have to get moving and break a little bit of a sweat like I did today, going up and down them stairs. Next slide. All right, so I'm gonna close out just by leaning into the social determinants of health. And this is just showing you that only 20% of your behaviors and your social outcomes 20% of your health outcomes are related to your engagement with your doctor or your nurse. The other 80% is related to everything happening to you every day. So your behaviors, your environment, your job, your family support. Are you using drugs and alcohol? Are you getting therapy or not? Do you live in communities with access to healthy stores and healthy foods, safe neighborhoods where you can walk, the air quality? All of these things are related to your overall health outcomes, positively and negatively, right? So there's positive social determinants of health, negative social determinants of health. We decide. And unfortunately, a lot of the negative is based on our zip code, and it should not. So again, these are conversations you should be having with the people that we put in places and spaces to make a difference. And I can tell you the AME Church is powerful, and you definitely may have these conversations. And so these are just 3 ways: education, awareness, next slide, advocacy, and public policy. These are ways where you can make a difference. And so I'm going to turn things over to Pastor Tyler, and I'm going to have a conversation of care and impact with Reverend Habersham. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much. So now I get to talk to Reverend Habersham about her journey. And I want to start this conversation. Oh, yeah. No, we're on. Yeah, okay, there we go. Just got to talk a little bit. How are you?
I'm good, real good.
Real good, real good, real good. I want to start this conversation out talking about reverency pre-dementia. and I want to start there because I think it's important to grasp your life and who you are, you know what I mean? To help us understand the pathway to this journey, because I actually think, because I know the testimony, is that understanding it from there on the back end is a really amazing testimony of what God can do.
Okay, so I was born in 1952. In 1988, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. I was living a much different life then, sowing my wild oats, and my wild oats was sowing me, amen. And so getting diagnosed with cancer at that point didn't mean a whole lot to me. It's like I went through it easy. I wasn't serving God at that point. And then in 1998, right after my ordination, my second ordination, I was ordained in October. November 12th, 1998, I got my second cancer diagnosis. I had breast cancer. And it was well advanced. And it was a very difficult journey. I had to have a bilateral mastectomy and a whole lot of therapy after that. One thing that I did learn on that journey, though, is support groups are the best thing you can have.
Yeah.
I learned that on that journey after crashing out, not expecting all the things that cancer brought me. Now, you heard me say I had just been ordained, a second ordination. That's God's joke on me. Let's see you preach now. On February 28th, 1999, I was told that I had maybe a week to live, that they had done everything that they could do. There was nothing else to do. The church where I was assistant pastor at Emmanuel AME Church was having what was called a Holy Hookup Revival. And I had been really sick and was going to miss a good portion of the revival. But I said, well, if I'm going to die by the end of the week, y'all need to figure out how to get me to church. Because at that point, you couldn't touch me because my bones were real brittle. You couldn't hug me, anything. So they had to have people around me. But I'm like, y'all get me to church. Got me to church. And on that Friday night, the Holy Spirit broke out. And people were getting healed. And I was healed in front of everybody in that church that night. That was March 5th. That was 5 days after they told me I would not live another week. God healed me March 5th, 1999. And April 8th, 2000, I had to have surgery. Now, there are folks who say, well, if God healed you, why did you have to have surgery? Well, before God healed me, I had an inoperable tumor. When God healed me, the tumor was gone, but then the tumor was gone, but the damage had been done. And so I had to have a bilateral mastectomy. And going through all of that, 2 years from the date that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I began pastoring. 2 years to the day. That was God's journey to get me to where God needed me to go. Thank God God didn't give me everything I wanted when I wanted it. That message was all. So it's through those journeys of healing and traveling, in 2023, I had to have surgery. And this was going to be a very difficult surgery, 3 teams of surgeons working on me all at the same time. I said, oh, Jesus, I'm going to be in a lot of pain when this is over. But the surgery went 5.5 hours longer than they expected. And when I came out of surgery, I'd had enough surgeries, so brain fog, I was not, I knew what brain fog was, but this was a whole lot of brain fog. And I just kept paying attention. I wasn't telling anybody what was going on. I was paying attention. In the meantime of paying attention to that brain fog, I was losing everything. I was losing stuff all around my house. I came to understand why people say people are stealing from them. Stuff was just disappearing. And I was like, what the heck? I went to reach for something one day to pay a bill, and all my banking stuff was gone. I like, okay, ain't nobody been in your house, this is you. But what did I do with my banking stuff? The only thing we can figure out from that day to this day, because we ain't never found it, is clearly I threw it away because I am the throwaway queen. I don't keep nothing, I throw everything away. So clearly I threw it away. It's something in my mind said, you don't need to ever write a check again. You don't need checkbooks. You don't need bank statements. Why I packaged up everything and threw it away, only God knows to this day. But that was the thing that helped me to understand there's a problem. Yeah. Because once I couldn't find none of my banking stuff, I said, the problem is you. It ain't everybody else. I'd lost all my credit cards. I went to reach for them one day, couldn't find them. Found them in a place I never would have put anything, let alone credit cards. So I called my doctor, and I said, I think we got a problem. And I called him, and I told him I went in, and he said, he came from around his desk, and he said, we got to have a heart conversation. I said, no, we don't, it's dementia. I've done my research, I'm pretty clear about where we are. I just want to know, what do I do? Yeah. How do I manage my health? How do I take care of it? And so that's where the journey began. Yeah. Yeah. Healthcare disparities are real. Yeah. And they're real in our community. He said, I'm going to refer you to a neurologist. Fine. I go to a neurologist. I've done my own research. The neurologist says, yeah, mild cognitive impairment. I said, excuse me, I read up on that. I'm way past that. He said, oh, no, that's what I'm going to say. My cousin was with me, and she said, are you even listening to her? I don't think you hear anything she's saying. He said, well, that's as far as I'm going to go. I learned a real hard fact after that. They give us mild cognitive impairment because you don't get any services. It sounds like a diagnosis. Wow. It is not. And so I said, no, I'm past that. I told my doctor, send me to another neurologist. That neurologist said, I'm sorry, this has been a funny journey. That neurologist said, oh, you don't have mild cognitive impairment. You don't have nothing. Wow. I said, excuse me? Oh, no, you don't have anything. You don't have to worry about nothing. I said, God help me. The third neurologist said, we have done an EEG, and we have determined that you need a psychiatrist, not a neurologist. You have to understand, between the third psychiatrist and the third neurologist and second neurologist, I went to a community meeting much like this one. And I heard a Dr. Mnet Gamada from UCLA speak. She gave all this information. As soon as they broke, I went straight to her and said, please help me. I need your help. And she got me into UCLA. Now, you need to understand, I had to fight.
Yeah.
I had to fight. But I had my PCP, get to know your PCP, please.
What is PCP?
Primary care physician,
All right.
your primary care doctor. Please get to know your primary care. My PCP fought with my insurance, trying to get me into UCLA. Here's how God works. I was being interviewed for a magazine, and the interviewer came to my house because he wanted to ask me a couple of extra questions that day. He came to my house, and I told him how frustrated I was trying to get a study. He said, well, where are you trying to go? And I said, UCLA. And he said, you're in luck. He said, I got a meeting with the president of UCLA tomorrow.
Wow.
He said, expect a call around 2:30. My meeting's at 1. It'll be over at 2. He said, because here's what I'm going to say to them. I met a woman named Reverend Habersham. She's trying to get a study. How do you want me to spin this story?
Wow. Ha!
God will put people in your place, I'm here to tell you. So about 2:12 the next afternoon,
Yeah.
I get a call from UCLA saying, Reverend Habersham, UCLA loves women of the cloth, and we want you to know that we are going to take care of you because we just love women of the cloth. I got what is called a study, a cognitive study. You have to fight to get them, but you have to get them.
Yeah.
Because that's how I got diagnosed.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were treating me for Alzheimer's, and every medication they gave me was sending me to the hospital. By the third one, I said, I don't care what other medication you got. We're not taking no more.
Yeah.
Now tell me what I need to do for whatever life I got left. Mediterranean diet, brain games, a lot of the things that Tia talked about. Everything they told me to do, I did and still do.
Yeah.
Because it is empowering. Was it challenging? Yes. I had to stop driving. The day I got my diagnosis, I turned in my keys. I turned in my keys. I don't like people taking things from me. I'd rather give them to you.
If I could use that as a turning point. So I wanted Reverend Habersham to start at pre-dementia because I think it's important to hear that we are real people, right? Oftentimes our loved ones, we can forget all that they were and who they were, and the diagnosis becomes the totality of how we see everything. But also these points of advocacy for yourself.
Yes.
The importance of learning and getting as much information as possible.
Yes.
Not accepting no or bad information,
Right.
even if it's from the doctor.
Right.
And finally, and most importantly, the role that our faith plays in working through any illness, but in particular to this conversation, dementia and Alzheimer's. And so I really appreciate that you allowed us to see the entire journey, including your cancer diagnosis. What she didn't say is in that window between 99 and 2020 is that she had a successful pastoring career and has tons of sons and daughters in ministry, has churches that she has built and moved beyond where they were when she got there, and has just been such an amazing leader and advocate in other places. So in the midst of all that, still moving forward and doing what God called her to do. Does that make sense? Amen. So as you begin to talk about people taking things from you and turning your keys over, the next thing I wanted to talk about is how this impacted and changed and how you navigated your diagnosis, the work around your diagnosis, and the conversation with your family.
So I gave my family a gift January 1st. And that gift was to bring everybody together and to share my diagnosis and to say, this is what I know I need help with. And to list it out and to allow people to pick and choose what they could help with. One of the things I had to learn is that we heal in community. We die in isolation. We have to have community. And so I had to let community know what I needed. And then, because so many times we don't want to tell people what we need, or we don't want to burden them, or sometimes we don't even know what we need. I knew some of the needs, and so I did have to bring people in and bring people close. And still, I'm not driving. I can't drive. So, and I share this with people. I gave up driving. I gave my car away the week I got my diagnosis, and so I gave up driving. Did want to go back and get it, though, I can tell you that. And every now and then I'm with people and ask them, you want me to drive? Because I still got a license, okay? Can I tell this real quick? DMV sent me a letter saying that they were taking my license. I said, okay. You're not taking my license because I gave my car away, all right. So I said, let me go get a California ID. So I did all of the stuff online, went to DMV, caught somebody who wasn't fully woke, and they said, can we just give you a license? It takes too much to give you a California ID. I said, but I think I'm supposed to have a California ID. She said, well, if we give you a California ID, it's going to take a whole lot longer. I said, I'll take the license. So I took the license. But I have an appointment on Friday to go get my California ID, just so y'all know. So, I mean, it's things like that. I do advocate for myself even when I still want to drive. But what I tell people is, I don't drive. It's a tough life, but somebody's got to live it. That means I get taken everywhere I need to go. Door-to-door service, everywhere I need to go. You know, it's in your perspective.
Yeah.
It's in how you look at it. And so I'm like, shoot, I got all kind of chauffeurs now. I just send out a text and say, can I get to CVS someday this week? And people will answer and say, I can take you on this day. Okay. I put it on my calendar. So it's about how you look at it. Has it been challenging? Yeah. But I just finished writing 2 books.
Yeah.
And they're at the publisher, and I wasn't sure what they were going to be like. And I said to the publisher, I don't know if this is any good or anything you want. And they sent me an email back saying, you're good enough. This is just what we want. So there are challenges. There are foods I can no longer, there are foods that I love, like grits and eggs. Give me grits and eggs any day. I can't eat it anymore. And so I have to kind of feel my way through what I can and cannot do. But there are still a lot of things post-diagnosis. What I want people to know is there's a full life after diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't do all the things I used to do, but I have a young lady who is unemployed, so she comes and takes me walking every Friday. See, you have to understand, I walk real slow. Anybody who really walks don't want to walk with me. I walk real slow, and I take steps and I wait, and so she just walks with me the whole time because we spend time together.
Yeah.
You know, and so you figure out how to live life.
Yeah.
And how to do things. There are so many things that I didn't know that this brings. But it's life.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to live around it.
Yeah. Amen. So, final question. Life after diagnosis. So you say you've written 2 books now. You started a whole new Alzheimer's ministry.
Yeah.
You've got another thing. Can we talk about the other thing yet?
So I have this deal coming up. So I was approached by one of the Alzheimer's associations I work with because they were approached by a big star whose dad has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And they wanted to do a documentary walking with someone with Alzheimer's. So the association says she doesn't have Alzheimer's. I have frontal lobe dementia. Says she doesn't have Alzheimer's, but she's your girl. So I've done the interviews, the tape interviews, and it is with, you're my people here, so you all may not know this person because thought I was the only person in the world who didn't know who he was. What's his name?
Chris Hemsworth.
See, I still don't know who he is. Chris Hemsworth, he plays Thor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so y'all know who Thor is? I don't know. I'm going to read up and act like I know by the time I get, because I'm already claiming I'm going to get the part.
That's
okay?
right.
I'm already claiming. I've had the 2 taped interviews. They want somebody who can talk about the disease, and I do that well.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to convince him now that even though I don't have Alzheimer's, I am the person.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see where God takes that.
Amen. And in addition to that, you teach a women's Bible study here at Park Chapel. Shout out to all the Lydia's House folks. Amen.
Yes.
Participate in our prayer group on Thursdays.
Yeah.
You serve as an online minister during worship service to help folks who worship with us online. And I point out those things because, and I'll be honest, at first I didn't get it. This is my confession. You would text me, you say, anything that's going on, if you can help me put it on my calendar, I'll be there. And at first I was like, I don't want to bother her with all this stuff, you know. Or I was like, it's already up there. You don't, why you need me to send you out all the ignorant things? And I want to be transparent for those of us that are asking a bunch of questions. What I realized was that, and it took me a while, maybe about a month ago, that participation in all of those things help you to stay connected, and engaged.
Right.
And that this was, in fact, you taking control of your own journey and diagnosis.
That's right.
And when I finally got that, I was like, all right, here you go. Matter of fact, we want you to be a part of. And I share that for those of us that have a family member that is struggling with dementia or Alzheimer's, that when they ask us for things, even if we don't understand it, to support in responding, because it may be the thing that they're asking us to do that is helping them to stay engaged and connected.
Yeah.
Now, that's not always easy, because the other conversation that we was my mother calling me to say, at some point, I'm going to die.
Yep.
And I want you to, it wasn't just me, to be fair. It was me and my sister, and but I want you and your sister, we need to sit down and have a meeting. Mm-hmm. And I think I had an idea of what we were about to talk about, but I don't know that I was ready. Matter of fact, my wife, when I
He wasn't. Let me tell you.
When I got off of that call, I think the look on my face, my wife was like, what's going on? But I appreciated that. Because it was easy for her to talk to us about it, it made it easier. I say easier, capital ER.
It wasn't.
To begin to process it on my own.
Right. It's important to talk. I have a disease that is non-curable. Now, I can talk around it all day long, but it is non-curable. So we need to talk about what happens as we move forward and we move into, me leaving off this earth. We need to talk about this. And we need to talk about what that looks like. And we need to talk about who I want talking about at my funeral. I want everybody talking at my funeral. So I told them, I want everybody talking.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if it's up to me, it'll be 20 minutes and y'all will be out of there. And so, no, it's to have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
Because when you have them, you normalize them. And, just to be able to say to my son and them, I can't eat what I used to eat, and I can't give you any reason for it. I just can't eat it anymore. And trying to figure out what I can eat. So your loved ones, like, I know I need to swallow my food, and if I eat beef, I can't eat beef anymore. I know I need to swallow, but my brain shuts down and won't allow me to swallow. So, yes, I got to spit it out. So if you're around loved ones and they have to do that, it doesn't mean they're being honorary. It may mean the brain shut down and said, you ain't gonna swallow that and send that down here.
Yeah.
And those things happen. And the more we talk, the more everybody is aware, even the patient themselves. Because I can look back now and see that there were signs. I just didn't know what they were. But there were definitely signs leading to this place, and I can see it now, but I didn't know what they were. And the same thing happened with my dad. I knew that there were signs, but his doctor kept saying there wasn't. So everybody kept saying there not. I'm like, y'all see what I see? Y'all ain't none of y'all blind. Y'all see what's going on here. Yeah. But nobody wanted to talk about it. And so when my dad died, he died crying out to God, saying, please come get me and take me now. And I said, please come get him and take him. Because he is tired of these folk down here. But if you don't talk about it, you don't even know what you're dealing with. And you have to have the conversations. And even now, when I'm talking to people who are in my generation, who I know and love, and I see the signs, I'll call them and say, can we have a tough conversation?
Yeah.
I need you to get to your doctor.
Yeah.
And I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the questions to ask. But we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. Amen. And I think what I've learned from you is that taking control of your diagnosis allows you to take control of something that oftentimes we become afraid is going to take control of us. Right? And so a part of this life after diagnosis, one is that there is potential to have an amazing life.
You better believe it.
You have done probably just as much now as
I would say I've done
before.
more.
Yeah.
I've done more.
Yeah, but also you have taken such command of this journey. And some of that has even been in being vulnerable and obedient sometimes. Sometimes being vulnerable and obedient, but really not allowing your diagnosis to live your life for you.
Right.
But living your life, not even in spite of, I think.
Along with.
Along with. And so
yeah.
I, in all of that, if there was a captivating closing charge, both to those who may be experiencing some of those signs, those who are perhaps caring for someone who has either been diagnosed or beginning to go through those processes, what would you leave us with?
Talk. What I said to my family is, don't talk to each other and not talk to me. Don't talk about me and not talk to me. Even if you think I'm not listening, talk to me. Don't leave me out of the discussion. Because I probably got more information than all y'all got. Because it's happening to me. You know, and so when you make talking easy or easier, it's not easy. But when you make it, when you normalize it, I would definitely say do that. And then learn everything you can. Tia's organization, without these organizations, I would not be where I am. The disease, I will tell you now, would have taken me out by now. Without the information, the education, Tia, Dr. Gaines back there, all of them, what they're doing in the community, sometimes I just tear up when I think about what they do, because I am where I am because of these support groups.
Yeah.
I am in 2 support groups, and I visit them all the time. Matter of fact, I tell people, don't put my appointments on Tuesday, because I need my group.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to me. It's my lifeline. And the other thing is for me, I'm in all of these things at the church. Anything they got, I'm on. They just don't let me be on the young adult Bible study. I'd be on that one too. But it keeps me engaged. Yeah. I'm on every Zoom call I can get on, whatever. It keeps me engaged.
Yeah.
Because my brain needs to be worked.
Yeah.
And I share with my support group as well as with my family. If it feels like the disease is advancing, I'll say, I'm forgetting my words. I need speech therapy. I'm not able to find my words more. I feel an advancement in this area. I try to keep people up on what's going on because it's non-curable. And at some point, it's going to do what it's going to do. It's an advancing disease. Yeah. It's going to do what it's going to do. And so I have the conversations about what do we do. Everything is good right now, but it ain't going to always be good. What do we do when it advances? Where do we go? So I've been looking at, where can I live? What is it going to look like? What kind of place? And I want to share this with people. I've said to my son, if I look at you and I don't know who you are, put me in a facility, please. Because I ain't gonna know who they are either. I said, do not do that to yourself.
Wow.
You know, if I don't know who you are, I ain't gonna know who them people are either. And if it stinks, I won't think that's the way it's supposed to smell. Because I wanted to release him. Don't put yourself through this.
Yeah.
Don't do that to yourself. I am not your responsibility that way. I'm not your assignment. They got places that I can be their assignment. And if I don't really know who you are and I don't remember anything, they ain't hurting me. You know, so be okay with that. We have to give our people permission.
Wow.
To be okay with, I am not your responsibility that way. If you are not gifted as a caregiver, I don't want you caregiving for me. That ain't your gift. That ain't your ministry. Send me to the hospital where it is. You know, and we have to be able to see it like that.
Yeah.
And so when I met with them about, you know, what is my services going to look like? And at the end, I said, well, that wasn't hard. This one here said, is that the way you read the room? But I wanted to normalize the conversation because it's going to have to happen. Yeah. And it's going to happen without me. So at least you know what my desire was. Now, if you have a 2-hour funeral, that was your desire, not mine. But, we just have to, for me, the closing thought is this. You are not your diagnosis. There is life. Whether it's after diagnosis, with diagnosis, before diagnosis.
Yes.
Life is what we make it.
Yeah.
And so for me, after diagnosis is being intentional about making sure that every day of my life is that I'm living life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, because it's going to look different today from tomorrow. Whatever it looks like, I'm living it to the fullest. Yes. I know that I have a shrinking brain. It may be shrinking right now as we talk. Who cares? That is the way things are. But I'm doing everything I can to slow down the progression. I have hearing aids. I don't have them on today, okay, everybody? They're not on, but I do. And the reason I don't wear them on Sundays is because they are connected to my phone. And I don't want to be preaching and somebody's talking in my ear. And so, because all my notifications are on there too. Okay. So I don't have them on today. But one of the things that I learned is when you have any kind of hearing impairment, it speeds the progression of dementia. Yeah. So I ran and got hearing aids. But here's the other deal. We don't get that information in our community.
Right.
Okay? I happened to go into a hearing place and saw this sign where it said, hearing loss speeds dementia. So I thought, well, what the heck? I almost said something else. When did that happen? And nobody told me, and I had been to an audiologist.
Wow.
And they never said nothing to me. So 5 years before, if they had said something to me, I would have gotten hearing aids.
Yeah.
And so there is so much that we don't know. But if we have gatherings like this, and let me say, I know you all already go home. Please go downstairs and get the information. Mm-hmm. That's how I got to where I am today, is reading all those pamphlets and all that information and getting educated.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Let's give God praise.
He's going to put the resources on the screen.
Wonderful. So the resources will be on the screen. I want to say thank you to Tia and to the Alzheimer's Association. We want to say thank you to Reverend Habersham for... absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get to all of that. Before we do that, we at Parks Chapel wanted to say thank you and let you know how much we love you and to give you your... Yeah. And I would ask our provider partners, if you wouldn't mind just standing up and letting us know what organization you represent.
So we have some partners here. We want to bring them up. I'm just going to bring the microphones over to you. Want to do that?
Yep.
Just tell you who your organization is. And then on the screen, you're going to also see some resources through the Alzheimer's Association. We have our 800 number, which is 24/7, meaning you can call this number 3 o'clock in the morning, 200 different languages, and get support. Maybe you want to call and say, my husband is agitated right now and I need to know what to do. You can call the 800 number. Maybe you need to find a neurologist or a caregiver support team or a day program. The 800 number is where you call for community resources. You can also go online, but everybody doesn't want to go online, so you can call that 800 number. We also have education available, so you can go online and find educational tools. So maybe you want to know about the 10 warning signs or a deeper conversation about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. You go online, you can get that information, or you can call them and ask them to send you some information. Also, you can go online just to join support groups. We have lots of support groups out in communities, or if you want to start a support group, you can also go online and find information about that or call that 800 number. And last but not least, you can go online in order to find more about clinical trials and research that we have in your community. The information I shared earlier about the Pointer study, that came from clinical trials and research. The information we know about the amount of sleep we need and about high blood pressure and diabetes affecting our brain, that all came from clinical trials and research. The information we know about hearing loss and dementia, that all came from clinical trials and research. So sometimes it's not about taking blood or DNA. Sometimes it's about your lived experiences. And we want our lived experiences to be part of the conversation and part of the when it comes to treatments, when it comes to interventions, and definitely when it comes to being part of the cure. We are unique people.
Yeah.
No one of us is alike. And so if we're not involved in clinical trials and research, those treatments and cures will not be designed specifically for us.
That's right.
So it's been an honor to be here with you today for having us here. It's been really an honor to listen to you, Reverend Habersham, again, tell your story, and I hope it resonates that Alzheimer's disease and other dementias do not define who you are. They don't define your loved one. Your mom is still your mom is still your mom. Your grandpa is still your grandpa. They're just living with a disease that unfortunately is changing who they are and how they behave and how they engage. But you being aware, you have an education and awareness surrounding this, you can engage better. You can support them better. And getting a diagnosis will let you know that maybe my loved one doesn't have Alzheimer's disease. Because as Reverend Habersham mentioned, the medications they were given to her weren't working. You can only know if you have Alzheimer's disease by getting a scan of your brain. So if someone just takes some blood and says you have Alzheimer's disease, you don't know that you do. So there are so many different types of dementias and so many different reasons why we need to know what we have so that we can be part of the journey, just like Reverend Habersham has been part of her journey, and we can know what we can do to slow down that journey. Yeah. Because if you can have 2 more years with your loved one, I would want them. Yeah. And 2 more quality years with your loved one, I would want them. Right? So stories like you make a difference. We are so thankful to you, and thankful to you, Pastor Tyler, for having us out here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gonna go to, thank you. So I will let you share who you are and the resources you're providing.
Okay. My name is Louis Watterson. I am a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association of America. I do community education. Some of the presentations that you've seen and other presentations I provide on request. I also facilitate caregiver groups. So I have groups of people that I meet with about 3 times a month to talk about what's going on in their life with their loved ones and you know, just kind of communicate with each other. I also do advocacy, so I'm speaking with local government about what we need in regards with Alzheimer's and dementia.
All right.
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Gaines, and I think the thing I really want to highlight with Reverend Habersham spoke about the support groups. We worked almost 10 years trying to get a support group together for black men. Well, of course, you know, black men don't feel like they need no support. They don't fix everything and they don't need no support. So, but we finally figured it out, and we have a group called Brother to Brother. I'm one of the co-facilitators of the Brother to Brother group, and I mention that because, like you, Reverend Habersham, I need my fix on Thursdays. You know, even though I'm a facilitator, being in that space, and it's online, so it's easy, accessible for everyone, even brothers in Atlanta, New York, Chicago join that call. But it is a powerful group, and so I will be sharing information downstairs about that support group and another support group called ACTS, which is also kind of, we're like a spinoff of ACTS, been part of that group. But then I'll also be sharing information about research studies that we've done and opportunities for you to participate in some of the research studies that we're doing. I'm from UC Irvine and part of the Center for Environmental Health Disparities Research, and I'm the co-director for Advocates for African American Elders, which is a program we founded about 15, 16 years ago because we just wanted to take care of our elders in the community, and no one was doing it the way that we thought it should be done. There was a lot of groups out there, but they were all disjointed, disconnected, and so we just found a way to say, you know what, we're going to take care of our elders, and so we started that group 15 years ago, and we still continue to do the work, although we're not at USC anymore. We're at UC Irvine, but we're working now. We've even expanded further. Now we're in Riverside County, LA County, and Orange County, when we were only just in LA County at one time. Thank you.
And we'll share it as well on our site and on our social media.
Hi, my name is Nitsa Becerra. I'm a community service analyst for LA County Department of Aging and Disabilities. And the LA Found program provides tracking devices to clients who have cognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's, dementia, and autism. We also provide other services at our department, and I have information for those services as well.
Thank you.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Lanisa. I'm with the BWITS group. BWITS stands for Black Women, Inflammation, and Tau. We're a research study out of UCSD, and we also have a site, UCLA. And we're researching Alzheimer's dementia in Black women specifically, because like we heard, we are the highest risk group for this dementia. Yeah, we offer neurocognitive assessments, we do blood draws, questionnaires, the 2-year study with 3 different checkpoints, and you're compensated throughout the entire study for those checkpoints. So we'll be downstairs, and you can get more information about our study.
And if you go to our website, this is from trialmatch.alz.org, you'll see there's over 900 different clinical studies that we have available. You put some information in, and some research studies will pop up that may be appropriate for you. Black Women, Inflammation, and Tau study is on there, and I'm proud to say I'm one of their community advisory board members, and they made certain that it's a Black woman study, and so the folks on the community advisory board are Black women. Doesn't that make some sense?
Hi, my name is Donna Benton, and I'm going to point out, like you did, is that right now I am looking at and providing information around finances and caregiving, because we, as you already said, we don't recognize ourselves as caregivers because we're a mom, we're the dad, it's our parents, our grandparents, but we also don't plan a lot around finances. A lot of caregivers are working, and there's a lot of out-of-pocket costs. And so one of the things that I've been working on, and I'm working on a national level, is what can we do to help with finances and financial security. So that's one of the centers that I'm running right now. The other thing is advocacy. There's the California Family Caregiver Advocates Association. So I'll have information downstairs about that. And then locally, we have the LA Caregiver Resource Center, and that's really for you as family caregivers or somebody you know who's a caregiver, so that you can get information. And I have information downstairs. Like, we have a really fun thing, which is our caregiver checklist, which I think is useful for everyone, as well as how to get in contact with us, because we have support groups. We have respite, which means being able to take a break, and sometimes we need to know how to take those breaks. And that's part of our ongoing services for family caregivers, and we do care navigation. And so anyway, I'm downstairs. Please come and talk to me, because there's a lot more, and we want to be able to give you that positive information.
Yes. Wonderful. Let's give God praise for all of our guests.
And Rob, if you can go down 2 slides, if you can go back 2 slides the other way, that one right there, and go up just a little bit. Do you see where it says guide program? I want everyone to take down this number. This program was designed for people living with Alzheimer's disease in our community to give them free resources. And it just kicked in July of 2025. They had a pilot program last year, but starting July of 2025, the guide program is for guiding an improved dementia experience. They have a hub at UCLA. We're trying to get them hubs more in community, but there are hubs around here. And basically, if your loved one has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, this program is paid for federally through Medicare, Centers for Medicare Services, CMS, to help guide you as a caregiver to have better resources. Nurses, social workers come to your home. They can do safety checks. They can help educate you on medications. They can give you therapy in the home, but they also are giving respite care to you, which is funding in case you need to go to a wedding or you need to take a weekend away. Now, it differs per family, but it's available. And let me tell you something. What will happen is, this is a 3-year program. 3 years we won't be using it, and then they'll say, you know what, they didn't need
They
it.
didn't
We'll
need
take
it.
it away, or
Yeah.
it'll be used by so
Yeah.
many people that don't look like us, and we won't have access.
Yeah.
So if your loved one has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, the GUIDE program, give them a call and check and see what you and your loved one are eligible for. Thank you, Pastor.
Wonderful, thank you. So we encourage all of our folks, go down, spend some time with the vendors, get the information. If not for you, for someone who you may know that needs it. And thank you all for such an amazing time. Thank you, Reverend Habersham, for this amazing ministry. And everyone have a great afternoon. If I could have WMS come up and take a picture with Reverend Habersham and Sister Tia. Women's Missionary Society. Oh, if WMS members could come up and take a picture. Get on up here. We're going to come down there.
Okay. I got balance issues.
So this is your church. Okay, we're good to see you. Yes, yes. Okay.
We're going to do a picture. Oh, no, I get it. You in Tucson.
Yep, that's about how it goes.